It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Liz Newman.
Hello.
And welcome back, Les Webster.
Hello, all, and thank you.
Yay.
Hope everybody is out there is doing all right. So, what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
Well, this week was, I guess, kind of quiet. Eased down a little bit from the week before, but so I got a chance. I was still kind of, as I get a chance, which hasn't been much lately, watching some music documentaries, and there were two of them specifically that I watched, and I wasn't super thrilled with either of them. So I don't want to name a whole lot of names.
Okay.
But there was one on the Beatles, which I thought was circuitous to say the least. It's really weird to watch a documentary about a band, and the documentary doesn't play any of the band's music. That just hit a wrong note for me. So, I mean, there were some interesting tidbits in there, but it was kind of talking to people that were not really necessarily directly related to the band, so it was kind of, like I said, kind of roundabout, and it was just a little weird. It just kind of had a strange tone to it, but
It would be kind of strange.
yeah, it was
A couple questions. Okay. The people they talked to, were these ones that were quoted citing the Beatles as influences, or are these just journalists, or what?
There were a couple of journalists, and there were a couple of people that kind of worked in the organization once it kind of got bigger, and it was, yeah, and there was like the sister of one of the spouses, and it was just like, really? We couldn't really get any angle our way any closer to the band than this. It was just strange. And there was a lot of like footage of like interviews and news reports and stuff about them. So, I mean, you're seeing their faces all the time.
Right.
But they're not really talking to them.
And
they're kind of not even talking to people who they talk to. It was kind of like third-hand stuff, and it was a little just weird. I don't know.
It sounded like it was a lazy.
Maybe, and it had kind of an interesting focus. It was focused specifically on kind of the creation of Sgt. Pepper's, and so it kind of started. I mean, because Sgt. Pepper's took them forever to do. It took them like more than a year to make that album, and so there's a lot of like stuff going on. This mostly about like the weird life sort of stuff going on in that like year and a half time frame. Like their manager dying and stuff like that, and it was just, and them getting involved with the Maharishi dude, and just kind of weird peripheral stuff. I mean, like I said, I didn't really want to give it this much airtime, but because it really wasn't very good. But
yeah,
I mean, it was interesting, but I mean, I could have lived without having watched it, and it would have been nice to have heard some of the songs they were talking about, but they never played them. Probably they didn't spring the money to have the rights to play them.
Yeah, the rights. Yeah.
Which, kind of makes it seem kind of not quite professional, but yeah.
Not authorized.
Yeah.
We had watched a Jimi Hendrix one like that, and they had said that they had made the movie and everything else with all of the music and stuff, and then the family stepped in and said no, they couldn't use the music. So it was kind of weird because it was all about Jimmy, and you know what songs he was doing during that time, but to not hear it was kind of like, wow. I don't know if I would have went through with it at that point.
It's very weird. Yeah, you kind of just want to scrap it at that point.
Yep.
Or just hand everything over to the family and say, okay, fine, you do it. Slice it up the way you want and go for it. But the stuff's done. Yeah. All I want at this point is some credit at the end.
Or bring them on and have them kind of oversee it, because it could be a concern about how they portray him.
Right. And
it was a good portrayal of Jimmy, because it kind of talked about it picked up right after he got out of the Army, and a lot of people didn't know that about him,
right.
And which is kind of funny when people are like, it was so disrespectful for him to play the Star Spangled Banner that way. It's like, are you kidding me? He fought for that. He can play it any way he wants.
He's a veteran. He's a veteran. He can do that.
But it was a lot of raw footage that I've never seen as a big Jimmy fan. I've never seen some of this before. So maybe that's why they chugged ahead with it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Well, Mike, what I hear is it sounds like them interviewing celebrity Big Brother to get these quotes. and that would, the hodgepodge of this would be, for me, it'd be tough to take, especially if they're not relating any of the songs.
It was a little weird. I mean, they kind of talked around. I mean, for it being allegedly about the making of Sgt. Pepper's, they talked around the studio thing a lot. They were just like, oh yeah, they spent a whole bunch of time in the studio working on it, and they go on to tell some other story about something else that happened at the same time, and I'm like, okay, just a little strange.
So in other words, it was not about the making of the album.
No, it was about other crap that was going on at the same time, which, good Lord, I mean, anybody could do that.
Yeah.
We do stuff like that. I mean, and I say this is going to sound weird. We do stuff like that every week on our show. We talk about stuff around something that happened at some point, and or is happening or whatever, and it's just kind of weird that to see an actual professionally done documentary doing the same thing.
Wow.
It's like it might as well have just been a podcast.
Yeah.
No knock on podcasts, of course, but I don't know. It was weird. Anyway, the other one was actually, it was better done. It was on Black Sabbath. It was a little better done. It was kind of an older one, and it was focused pretty much on the Ozzy years, which was interesting. It was like done 20 years after Ozzy left the band, but it's focused on the Ozzy years, and so it's got clips of interviews at the time, and it's got they actually talked to some members of the band. They had Tony Iommi in a studio for a while because they had a lot of scenes of him. So it was, like I said, it was a little more reasonable. Still wasn't fantastic, but it was all right.
That does sound interesting. Where's the Black Sabbath one at?
Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Cool. See, sometimes it's love-hate with Ozzy. I love his music and, where he's gone, but I really think that Randy Rhoads did a lot for Ozzy, and he's not really given that credit, I think the last time Ozzy talked to him, he slapped him. So it's kind of... But anytime now that you hear Ozzy, they always play Crazy Train. Who is that? It's Randy.
Mm-hmm.
That's all Randy,
Yep. Well, it's also his biggest hit, too.
Yep.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's pretty interesting. We'll have to watch that one.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to be a little unusually quiet tonight. I don't really have a lot.
Sure.
Right? Because I'm dying to hear this report from Les. Like how I did that?
Yeah. Yeah, let's hear this report.
I'm dying to hear this report, too. It sounds damn good.
Right? Don't disappoint.
No pressure, man.
Yeah.
bus is backing up early tonight.
Liz is doing everything she can to keep it off of her for a change.
Right. I took the clown shoes off.
After what she went through last week, I can understand why.
Right. But I'm so glad you're back.
This past week, I attended a Celebrity Fest in San Antonio. This was not a comic book convention per se. This was more geared toward the guests that they did have there. And it was controlled chaos as far as vendors go, because they put all the artists in one room. And in that room were a couple of celebrities and the entertainment stage. Every day we were serenaded by the Jake and Elwood imitators, which was entertaining. But we did have some panels.
I'm sure it was entertaining for the first hour.
I was going to say, for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times can you hear the theme of the Rawhide?
We heard Rawhide, I would say, 4 times in 3 days.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty bizarre. They had all the music on record or on, that shows you how old I am.
Hey, man, records are coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the music was on CD, and they performed on mic. So it was fun. Met some interesting people nearby, and dropped information to them as to conventions in the Texas area, directed them toward the CAP site, made sure they understood to get there to set up tables and everything else, which I thought was kind of a good idea. Some of them could sell their wares. The man next to us had a video he had done, and we tried to instruct him to go to the Frightmare to sell his disc.
Okay.
Cool.
So, and I did get a copy and watched it. It's pretty interesting what he did. So,
that's cool.
I did get to meet some of the celebs, which was kind of fun. And I got to watch some of them on panel from afar. So I bet it was fun. Had a good time. Hours were long. The first day was Friday. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday convention. Friday was 2 to 5. Or, I'm sorry, 2 to 7. Saturday was 10 to 9.
Oh, yeah, that's a long one.
Wow.
And the third one was 10 to 7. It was long haul. But we had a good time.
And you got to rub elbows with your fellow celebrities, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they came running up and wanted autographs.
I'm sure you handed out business cards too, right?
I'm sorry?
I take that as a no. That's okay.
No, I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
I said I'm sure you handed out business cards, right?
Yeah, a couple of them I did.
Okay, cool. Awesome. And someday I need to hear the story about Domino's.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be right now, because I'm not sure if it's
Might not be clean enough for this show, but
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It is. But that was funny.
We'll have to save it for another time.
Okay.
But I definitely want to hear it.
All right.
Because our mutual friend Tom Branch asked me to mention the word dumb nose to you, so so my curiosity has been piqued. So.
Okay. We can do that.
All right. Sounds good. Not a lot on my end. I did discover a streaming website called Pluto TV, and which has over 100 channels. Have y'all heard of Pluto TV?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm the last one to hear about this.
No, you're next to last. I hadn't.
Okay. Well, I found out about it because there's a channel strictly for classic Doctor Who.
Oh,
so yes, apparently that is something that has been added real recently.
Ah.
So I've been checking that out, and of course,
there is also a Rift Tracks channel.
Rift Tracks. There's Mystery Science Theater 3000. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of cartoon channels, and if you're interested, there is a Dog and Bounty Hunter channel. There's a documentary channel, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
You know about that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I heard about this, and so I turned over there and checked out Doctor Who, and of course, it happens to be the story arc I happen to catch is Planet of the Spiders, which is John Pertwee's last story arc. So I saw him die again. And of course, Pertwee's my favorite Doctor, so that was a little tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, go check it out. There's a bunch of different movie channels, there's a lot of sporting channels, and it's all free.
Yep, that's the deal.
I mean, there's ads, but it's not ridiculous. So, like I was watching Doctor Who's, I think there's like maybe 2 commercial breaks for a 30-minute program. I can take that.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how that is for the other channels, but.
So we watched, I think it was like Ernest Goes to Jail or something like that was on there.
Okay.
And there was maybe
You're admitting that in public?
Jim Varney was my hero growing up.
Wow. I just learned something about you, Liz. God.
He was about as graceful as I was, so it was like, yes. But that, when we watched it, there was maybe 4 commercials, and that was a whole movie,
Cool.
And it didn't seem long. The commercial breaks did not seem long.
I think it's 2 commercials. They're a little bit longer instead of the 30-minute commercials. They're like 45, it seemed, but
second.
Yeah, 45 seconds.
Second commercial, not minute commercial.
Second,
45-minute commercial, that's different.
That's an infomercial.
Right.
Yeah.
That's that Plexiderm or whatever hell it is.
Flex tape.
So, okay, well, cool. I mean, y'all were obviously aware of it. I was not, but it was kind of cool because I spent some time checking that out. So,
neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of TV, so.
See, I think it popped up on our Roku. If you search something, it'll tell you, you can watch it on this channel or rent it here, and that's how we found Pluto.
There you go.
Something we were looking for was on there. And I think my brother-in-law, he watches like All in the Family and the Jeffersons and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of classic TVs. There's Buzzer, the game show networks there, and yeah, I mean
that
there's
computer TV.
There's a bit of a callback. She cracked herself up.
I did. Sometimes you just have to laugh to keep from crying.
All right, before we get into this week's discussion, wanted to make you all aware about our upcoming Meet and Gab. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, what this is every second Saturday of the month, we do what we call a Meet and Gab. It's where you have a chance to come meet us, and we can discuss anything geek related or not geek related. Just have some fun and conversation and all that. This time it's going to be Saturday, July 13th at 7 p.m. and we are still doing it at Queen City. That is located at 1456 Beltline Road. That's Suite 120 in Garland with the zip at 75044. We have all this information on our website. So if you go to www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, click on the events tab, there's that information there. If you're following us on Facebook, we have a Facebook event set up there as well. We would be happy if you would join us and have some good food, have some great conversation. These are always fun. It's always a trip. We love having them. We love having y'all with us. So please, by all means, come join us. And once again, that's Saturday, July 13th at 7 p.m. in Queen City. All right. This week, Liz is going to be happy. You probably have already seen a lot of it on social media for the past week, but as of today's date, which is June 23rd, is the 30th anniversary of the release of Tim Burton's Batman.
Woohoo!
And of course, we felt we needed to discuss and celebrate this film, which has a rather interesting tale of how it came to be, if y'all ever had a chance to read this. But we want to kind of discuss our thoughts and feelings about this movie, and with that, who would like to go first?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go for it.
Go
Okay, 1989 Batman. I have to be honest, this is probably what I compare most Batman movies nowadays to. I know there was two before it, maybe? Or am I thinking TV shows? I think there was a movie for the TV show, right?
Yes.
Anyways, this one they blew up. You went to McDonald's, it was on the cups, it was in the Happy Meals, it was everywhere, you know. And I have to say, as a Batman fan, I wasn't disappointed. This was, I guess, early in my Burton love affair. I knew I liked the movie, but I didn't go see it because it was Tim Burton. I went and saw it because it was Batman. Now I go see movies because it's Tim Burton. I like the goth spin he put on it. Right before this, he did Beetlejuice. So everybody was like, oh, we're going to have a Joker that looks like Beetlejuice. Which I loved the way that he put Jack Nicholson in there. I think a lot of the criticism on this movie is that Jack Nicholson sometimes overshadowed Batman. I mean, it's hard to have someone who had the stature of Jack Nicholson not overshadow someone. By this point in 89, he very well had his name, you know. Michael Keaton, yes, he did, but not anywhere close to Nicholson's stature, you know. The only complaint that I have about this movie is I don't care how many producers get a hold of it. You cannot change the story that the Joker killed Batman's parents. It just didn't happen. Sure, it would make an awesome story, but it didn't happen. So I think other than that, and I think Kim Basinger, for her audition, she just had to go in there and scream, because that's the only thing she did through the whole movie was scream. But the soundtrack was amazing. Prince did the first one, right? And then after that, it was Susie and the Banshees. So, yep. A lot of good names. I think they promoted it wonderfully. Like I said, they definitely got it out there. I don't know what it did at the box office or anything, but...
Over $400 million.
Oh, yeah.
So they definitely made their money on it.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. And then 2 came along. I don't know if we're going that far. 2 was okay. But 3, by the time they changed it to Val Kilmer, it was just kind of like, oh my God. And I'm kind of glad that Tim Burton distanced himself from that one.
The Batman Forever, Tim Burton didn't have anything to do with it. He produced it. But that was the beginning of the Joel Schumacher era, which we probably shouldn't talk about.
But Burton also did the Batman animated series. And that one, before the show we were talking about, we made this for your 8-year-old kid. I don't think they made that one for the 8-year-olds. I mean, it was just a very dark Batman, which kind of started me into watching, the animated stuff that DC put out too. So I have to say, I think that Burton, I think he handled Batman very well. I think he did the best he could, other than with Joker's killing Batman's parents. I think he did the best he could with the source material. And I heard that later on, he always credited Bob Kane. And I heard later on that now he also, at the end of that film, also credits Bill Finger for his work on there. So, which was the right thing to do. Does anyone want to fill in? I won't go off on Burton too much.
I'm trying to dry my eyes.
I don't know. I find I have a hard time considering that glowing praise, but you've managed to find a couple of little nitpicky things to complain about there. But
right, because first and foremost, I'm a Batman fan, but
right.
Burton.
You were a Batman fan first, and then you became a Tim Burton fan.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And although, like I said, with that one little detail in the movie, I think if you consider what he did on the animated, I think he more than made up for that. And I could be wrong, but I think in the animated was the first time we actually got to see Superman versus Batman.
Yes.
Which was pretty cool. And that's the way they should have handled the movie. When Superman first met Batman, he hated him. He was like, you're tearing up the town. Like Superman wasn't doing the same thing, right? But then I think, it was finally, we're fighting the same cause, and they became friends. Which is the way it should have been, They're both doing the same job.
Yeah. And it seemed a convenient way to spin a Superman animated series out of the Batman animated series that was making them so much money at the time.
Yeah.
So, hey, why not, right?
I'd forgotten about that, but yeah. I guess that's why they did that. But, and they also handled it. I always said the perfect fight against Batman and Superman, the first time Batman comes along Superman, he's going to get his butt handed to him. I mean, totally and completely. He will get his butt handed to him. But the second time, after Batman goes home and he broods and he does his little research and he finds out every little bitty detail about Superman, that second fight, oh man, he's going to kick some butt because now he knows you. You're on his radar, And that's kind of the way that Burton handled that was Superman handed him it. I mean, he didn't know anything about this guy, didn't know anything about his fighting style. And Batman's biggest weapon isn't his utility belt, it's his brain. He's smart. He's a detective. He figures things out and puts it together, and that's how he beats his enemy, is more with the mind than with the weapons.
He's a detective.
Yep. The world's greatest.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of irony going on, given that we can hear thunder in the background while we're talking about Batman. But
means even God agrees with me.
Wow.
He's like, preach it.
That's maybe a bit of a leap, but okay.
Well, the thing is that we're nowhere near. So lightning strikes, then we're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Worst case, it might tickle our ear hair a little bit, but you know, those of us who are wearing headphones anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that he handled it pretty well. I think he stayed true to Batman's character and style, and I think he shouldn't have done any more because he did what he wanted to do with it, you know?
I kind of agree with you that if I was going to rephrase that, I would say that Burton tapped into the Batman that was there. He found ways to. I mean, it seems weird to say this at such a late date, but he found some interesting ways to pull Batman into the mainstream.
Yeah.
Because Batman was kind of ever present, but was never really kind of in the forefront. I mean, there was the TV series, but that was very different. Batman that wasn't a perfectly accurate representation of the character beforehand, and it kind of didn't go anywhere after the TV series ended. But in that time, Batman was always there, and he was always the detective, and he was always the kind of the vigilante and the crime fighter. And when Burton came along and made this, he managed to tap into the darkness enough to kind of make it cool in a way. I mean, and this is a couple of years after Frank Miller, right?
Yeah.
Because that was like 86-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, I suspect, I wouldn't be surprised if those two things fed off of each other, basically to drive comics in the 90s in the directions that they went. Not just Batman, but a lot of the stuff. All of that dark and brooding stuff became really cool in the 90s. Everybody loved that. Everybody could just ate that shit up. And I think that those are your two sources for that was Frank Miller and Tim Burton.
Well, Tim Burton made goth not so scary. You know, you can. He put the cute and the goth together. You know, where people weren't as scared of emo kids anymore because they're like, oh, they're going to slit their wrist, and now they're thinking, you know, I mean, he really, my goodness, it scared me. And with Batman, you can see the goth influences in that, and it was still this, you know, had the comic book feel to it. But after watching things like, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas came after Batman, but you can definitely, that's when I think I started noticing style. That his style that he had kind of was in all of his movies, but Pee-wee had no goth cute in it whatsoever. Still not sure why he made that one, but, you know. But he took the creepy and made it less creepy. He kind of almost made it cute, you know?
I think he kind of made it, I hate to keep using this phrase, but he kind of brought it into the mainstream a little bit. He took kind of descriptions and some stuff from the way Gotham City had been presented and described in the comics and made it pop visually. It made it very, very obvious and made it a little dark and made it, I mean, it's like the night to Metropolis's day. I mean, Metropolis, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, the Richard Donner movie notwithstanding, Metropolis is kind of New York City by day, whereas Gotham City is definitely New York City by night.
Yeah.
And it's a different feel. There's a different sensibility there. And yeah, he kind of made it kind of shades of black and a little bit kind of gothic architecture and a little darker stuff, and made the cars look like they're from like the 1930s because that just friggin' looks cool. And you don't get that with Metropolis because it's a different feel, it's a different vibe. So yeah, and I think Burton went a long way towards, I mean, essentially designing Gotham City. I think he turned it into, I mean, and I think especially when you get to the animated series, Gotham City becomes a character in the show. And I think it does to a smaller extent in this movie too.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same if it was set anywhere else.
No. Well, and I kind of think too that's where some of the later Batman's movies kind of miss the mark. You've got a superhero whose main camouflage is hanging out with gargoyles on buildings. You know, it's got to be kind of dark and gothic, and I mean, if not, I mean,
if not, you don't have gargoyles for him to hang out with.
Right.
Honestly.
You know, he might as well be wearing white at that point.
Sure.
Or red and blue.
It's a thought, you know.
And I'm surprised that the Joker, I think Jack Nicholson, that to me will always be one of my favorite roles that he's done. But it was kind of surprising for it to be Burton because he was kind of cheery and not happy, but, you know, that psychotic kind of happy, which to me he was the bright spot in the film, you know. Almost out of place, like Barbie doll went to go hang out with Chucky. I mean, that kind of thing. It was good, but I almost expected something darker, you know, just because it was Burton.
Are we watching the same movie? I thought.
Yeah.
We're talking about the Joker, right?
Yeah. He wore the makeup.
He seemed plenty dark to me, really.
Well, yes. I mean, he was the Joker, but he was also more, I don't know, even down to clothing choice. Was real bright and, you know, I don't know. Like I said, to me, he wasn't as gothic as some of Tim Burton's characters are. Even, I hate to even compare the two, but like with the Red Queen from Alice, even though she's this cartoon bubbly character, he made her real gothic looking and toned her down. With the Joker, he didn't seem to do that. And even in the animated series, I think it followed over into there. He wasn't the darker character that we knew him from the comic books. You know?
I love how these other two guys are sitting back watching us duke this out. Not sure what that's all about, but okay.
Like I said, though, the only thing I would change is that one where he tried to, you know, you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? I know they were trying to, you know, it was in the Prince song. I know they were trying to tie it all together, but I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times. If there was no Batman, there'd be no Joker. So Joker couldn't have killed his parents if he wasn't even Joker yet. So that one little detail always stuck with me, though. And I think they tried to do that again in, was it Nolan's Batman at the end where he got the card? And they said it had something to do with his parents, and it was kind of like, come on, Joker didn't kill his parents. I don't know if the second one with Ledger that they actually even went into that. I've maybe seen that one maybe twice. Not my favorite Batmans. I guess for me, Tim Burton's Batman's probably, like I said, what I've always been stuck in. I liked the way it was done. It was dark, but it wasn't over the top, you know.
Let's jump in here.
Okay. When the movie was announced, everybody was excited. When the casting was announced, everybody went, Batman is going to be played by Mr. Mom?
Yep.
Yep.
I read an article about the hiring of Jack Nicholson. I was not impressed because he tried to manipulate it. According to this article, the original Joker was to be Robin Williams.
Huh.
They had signed Robin Williams for the part, and Nicholson came back and said, hey, I will relent on some of these demands I have. And of course, then the people other than the director said, yeah, we're going to have Nicholson do this role instead of Williams. Not that Robin Williams would have done a better job, but
I'm trying to picture that.
Well, one thing, you were talking about him being a big star, and that's true, because if you watch the movie, they give Nicholson's name before they give Michael Keaton's name.
Yep, that was one of the conditions for him taking the role.
Huh.
And that, to me, I was kind of taken aback by that. I figured that you wanted your star, your main character, to be the leader on that.
Yeah. The headline, yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily new, because Brando and Hackman got top billing before Christopher Reeve.
True. Yes. And not that I think that they did the nicest job there either.
Well,
but
I'm just saying that's part of that was negotiation, and part of that's name recognition too. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Yep, it's all part of the machine.
I did see the movie on opening weekend. Loved it. I still enjoy it. They got away from the 60s look of Batman, which I commend them on, because Adam West already had his Batman movie. So, stepping forward, Tim Burton, I thought, did a fine job in his first two movies with the Batman title. I'm glad he walked away after that. I didn't see any reason for him to stick around for 3.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he didn't either.
Other than keeping out of Joel Schumacher's hands. But who knew? Who
Geez.
knew what that was going to be? Who knew where that was going to go at the time?
Oh, I still get the shivers for that.
Yeah.
It was successful. It was a big hit when it first opened, and it's got staying power now. Granted, every Batman movie recaps his origin, which does kind of drive you nuts, but you have to accept that too. Just like every Spider-Man movie has to recap his origin. I was pleased, and like I said, I still am pleased as to what they accomplished. Although they had some glaring problems with a gun that's 18 feet long being pulled out of a pocket. But I enjoyed it, and I'll stand by it. To me, it should be considered one of the best superhero movies, probably behind Superman.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think a lot of people get turned off on these because the costumes were obvious, and I think Burton was like, I'm going to make a comic book movie. Like, I'm going to make the comic book come alive, so he, like you were pointing out, made it dark and that kind of thing. It was like right off the pages. He kept the comic vibe. Now, I think it was Batman Forever with Alicia Silverstone. They kind of went overboard with that comic book vibe, but I think for him, he captured that just right, and that's what he was trying to do as a comic book movie.
Well, and not just a comic book movie, but a Batman comic book movie.
Yeah.
I think that was what Schumacher lost, was that he just decided it was just a comic book movie, and that everything should be 4-color and have witty banter and whatever, and he got hung up in his own memories of the friggin'
66
TV show and ended up making that instead. Whether he did it on purpose or not, I don't know. But yeah, he lost track of it being Batman. And it's like I mean, you kind of wonder if he ever really read comics. And certainly Batman comics. Clearly he had not, in my opinion. But
no. Well, there's another director out right now that's the same way. That says you don't have to respect the origin story.
Just one?
Well, one recent that was bumping his gums,
Uh-huh.
And I think he told us we could deal with it. I think that's what set everybody off. I
think you're paraphrasing a bit, and that's good. It needed to be paraphrased a little bit. That's fine. And
you've already had that rant.
Right. We're not doing that again. We're talking about Tim Burton here.
Tim Burton, yeah. But no, I agree. As many times as we hate seeing the origin, there's a lot of newer people and newer fans who don't know that. So for something for us where we're like, oh, that's so obvious, I guess there's still a few people that don't know how Batman's parents died.
Or why it's relevant.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and you would think that Batman would be pretty common, right? Comic Book Day was Batman Day. I was trying to find Batman cupcakes. You know how many times I had to explain what the Batman logo was? It's a bat symbol. And they're like, what is that? It's a bat. How much more obvious can you be? It's a bat. So, yeah.
It's time to play Spot the Looney.
Right. That was 5 stores, people. 5 stores.
We already have the Looney on our show. Yes, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
I had to make my own cupcake.
Oh, gosh.
That is amazing considering how Batmania was everywhere.
Everywhere.
And I'm sure Les can back up the claims that it was pretty much equal to the Batmania back in the 60s when the Adam West show started up. It's like you could not turn anywhere without seeing the image or the symbol. I mean, I still to this day remember seeing the billboard letters, and all there was the logo, the bat shield
on a black background.
On a black background.
Yeah.
That was it. I mean, that was enough. You knew exactly what that was. I love this movie. I probably saw it 6 or 8 times, at least, when it was out in its initial release. Several times with my sister, because my sister loved this film. It's just everything about it was so incredible. Mm-hmm. The cinematography, the look of the city, because this was a soundstage. This was not them filming like in New York or something like this. This was created specifically for the film. Something else that hadn't been brought up, the wonderful Danny Elfman score was so incredible.
Yep.
Put that guy on the map is what it did. That's what it did.
It did.
Yeah.
He's had a hell of a career from that movie.
Yeah.
And most people don't know him, but they've definitely heard them. I mean, if you've been to the movies in the past 10 years, you've pretty much, that's his soundtrack. Anything good, anyway. Yep.
A little bias there, maybe.
Yep. Yeah, a little bit.
But he does a lot of work with Burton.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Burton has his favorites, so yeah.
Well, and I think part of that is he
which
understands.
Is in a way how Michael Keaton got the role, but anyway.
Right.
I think he also understands how important the music is to the movie just as much as the script. When they're building up to that certain scene, and it's the music that takes you there, and it's the music that makes you jump, and it's. I think he tapped in with that. I mean, even the soundtracks for the 2 movies he did for Batman are amazing. Outside of Elfman too, but yeah.
I remember hearing the news that Keaton had been cast, and yeah, just like everybody else, I was going, Johnny Dangerously? Okay. But then you see...
It's funny how quickly we had forgotten Beetlejuice.
Yeah. Well, and here's something else. Just 2 or 3 months prior to Batman coming out, if you had not even seen the trailer for the film, there was a little movie called Pacific Heights with him and Matthew Modine, and it was a thriller, and he was the bad guy.
Yep.
And then there was also Clean and Sober, which was also him. Mm-hmm. So he was already starting to show the dramatic side of his repertoire.
Yeah.
So, but when the first couple of promo images started coming out, and you see him in that suit, you're going, "Oh wow, okay." I remember picking up. This is going to show my age. Picking up, well, I guess the fact that we're talking about a movie is 30 years old, but Starlog magazine, and that him in that suit standing in front of that Batmobile was on the cover, and I remember taking that to school and showing that off, and people having their minds blown when I'm telling them that's Mr. Mom in that suit. Because you look at the suit and you're like, that doesn't look like Keaton. And I say, well, look at the lips. That's Keaton. Yep. That's unmistakably his lips. But so and credit I think was Bob Ringwood, I believe, did the costume design. Joker looked great. It just everything was. Well, it was. There was the thing was it seemed like they tried to make it timeless. It was kind of noir. It was kind of 40s, but it was a little modern too. And obviously the animated series picked up on that and ran with it and did an excellent job as well. Mm-hmm. It was just It was incredible. It was an incredible experience watching that film. Yes, there's problems. There's problems with the film. Yes, the gun that Les talked about. But just seconds before that, him in the Batwing with all that heavy artillery just popping out and can't take him out, but can be instantly taken out by this fake ass gun with one bullet. Okay, all right. I mean, the rest of it I can swallow, but this I don't know. It was just a fun experience.
And one of the best Batman cars they've given us in a movie.
And it's actually a car. It's not like a tank. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why they're preoccupied with him having a mini tank to drive that's going to be going 90 miles per hour. I'm like, okay,
undetected.
Right, with stealth technology, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they call them, aren't they like ground tumblers or something? They don't call them a car.
It was a tumbler that he was driving, that Bale was driving. I'm not sure exactly what they would call what Affleck's Batman drove, which I can't even tell you right now what it looked like.
So clearly it wasn't that memorable, but we certainly don't forget the
only thing, right? The only thing that was memorable about Affleck's Batmobile was the fact that he was using a tow cable, basically throwing a car full of henchmen around from side to side, killing them all. Well, yep, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. But anyway.
Again, no bias whatsoever.
No bias.
And when I was out last week, one of the stars was in attendance. Robert Wall.
Cool.
Was at the convention in San Antonio. He was truly amazing to listen to, and I was hoping to hell that he would turn and talk about Newbound Kirk, but he didn't. That's from Hollywood Nights, and but he did approach his role in Batman, which was kind of fun because he had the one scene with Bob Kane, and it was just great fun.
Now, didn't Bob Kane die shortly after this?
Let's see, this was in
89.
89.
It was mid-90s, I believe, when he passed.
98.
Because he passed after Jack Kirby, I believe.
He did.
I got one right? Good Lord.
Cool.
And I always think that it's great that if you can go to the people who imagined this and made it come to life on paper, their opinions they definitely matter. And it really makes the difference in making a really good movie or a really crappy movie, which I think that, Marvel did great with tapping in with Stan Lee. He was able to tell them, and so I always like it when they incorporate the OG guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up and take a quick break?
No, just if you enjoyed Batman, 89 Batman, I think you'd really enjoy some other Tim Burton works.
Oh, God.
No, you won't.
He doesn't need you to sell his movies for him, Liz.
If you want to sell something, I just saw that they're apparently going to do a Batman comic series based off the 89 and 92 movies. Huh. So we may have a Batman series based off the films. So there you go.
That'd be cool.
Yep.
I wonder if they'll consult Burton.
Why?
Well, if they base it off. Well, if they base it off his movies, and
it's based off their characters,
Right, but set during his time, and he did take that over into the animated series.
He really was just the director. I mean, let's be realistic here.
I mean,
yes, he had a hand in doing some of the design work as well, but this movie was on the boards for several years before it was handed to Burton.
Yeah.
There are plenty of other people they can talk to. Just saying.
It'd be pretty cool if they talked to Burton.
Okay, that's fine. Yes, you can believe that.
Hey,
that's good.
Leave, please.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tim Burton Hour.
Right, no kidding. I do not recall him being a sponsor of this show or anything, so we don't have to sell his stuff.
Yep, that's right. And on that note, we are taking a quick break and we'll be back with our weekly picks. And we're back, and it's time for our weekly picks, and leading off is Mr. Les.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. My first choice is Betty Page Unbound, number 2. This is by Dynamite Entertainment, and I'm in on this because, one, it's Betty Page, one of my favorite characters, one of my favorite models, and second is they are doing something a little different, where they talk about a dimensional shift, and as a result, Betty is going to be at a point of trying to keep the great old ones from destroying reality. So, put me in on this one. They've been successful with their previous storylines, and I think this will continue in this, what is it, six issue series. So, yeah, I'm there.
Cool.
Ditto.
And the
Thank you. Thank you, Rush.
No, yeah, I'm loving this book. All of these Betty Page stories have been awesome, and this one is just as awesome as the others.
Yep, I agree. Alrighty, Liz.
Alrighty. For my first pick, I am going with Doom Patrol: Weight of the World. I think I've expressed my love for Gerard Way before.
No.
No, just a little bit.
He's no Tim Burton.
Right, he's awfully close. I was fortunate enough to fall in love with him through his music, and he told a story at one of his concerts that when September 11th happened, he lived in New York, and at the time, he was trying to make it into comic books. He had done a few things and hadn't really done much, but when September 11th happened, he was like, I've got to do something with my life. Something has got to change. Well, him and his brother started My Chemical Romance, and, that whole thing happened, Well, he left because at the very end, there's a point to this story, I swear. Yeah. At the end of the band, when they all broke up and everything else, Gerard Way had stepped back because his brother Mikey pretty much had a mental breakdown. Just all of it happened so quickly for them, the fame, the notoriety and everything else, that he just couldn't handle it. And even Gerard at the time had said that he had had a hard time coping with it. So to say that mental health issues are always, forefront in his mind is an understatement. He's lived it, he's walked it. Well, with this arc of Doom Patrol, he will actually get into that. Doom Patrol has always sent some kind of message, whether it's about individuality, your human spirit, parenthood, they've always tackled some kind of issue. In this arc, they will actually be handling body positivity, because Mr. Robot gets a new body, and he's got to come to terms in what he looks like and everything else, and also with mental health. So I think it's an awesome platform to use to reach a wide audience. And I know he doesn't like to be associated with My Chemical Romance anymore, which I think is crazy, that I honor that. I think anyone who's been a fan of that and knows the reason behind that will really, really enjoy this arc. So definitely pick this one up. It should be good. Should be heart-touching. In the first issue, they adopt a puppy. So...
well, hell, there you go.
Out. Right, just buy it for that. But like I said, it should be a very good... I mean, he's always handled him very well, and I'm really excited to see how he'll handle these two topics.
Very cool.
And Nick Darrington is still doing his covers. Woohoo!
Nice.
Yep.
Alrighty, Mike.
Okay, my first pick is an Image title, and I am picking Analog number 6. This is a new story arc for this title. We've had a bit of a layoff here. It's been a while since we had the first arc. I was a huge fan of the first arc. This is briefly. I'm not going to go into like Liz level of description, but briefly, this is the main character here is Sam, and he is a courier in a near future in which the internet basically has exploded. I mean, is gone pretty much. And Sam may have personally had something to do with that or something, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you. Not going to go into that. But yeah, it's kind of like an interesting blend of near future and noir. Or at least, especially Sam. Sam's a very noir type character. And so it's just a lot of fun. I highly recommend people check it out.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, it is my turn. And for my first choice, I'm going with a book from Humanoids, Inc. It is Ignited number 2. And if you've not picked up the first issue, I highly recommend it. This is Humanoids is a relatively new publisher, and fronted by Mark Waid, and he co-writes this book with Kwanzaa Asfayetfo, which I know I butchered that. If you read the miniseries Black from Black Mass Studios about the world where only black people had developed superpowers, you've read his work. So the two of these join forces to bring this book, basically a brand new shared superhero universe. And in the first issue, we're dealing with students going back to school. It's a new school year, but they're having to deal with a shooting that happened at the end of last school year. So they're coming to grips, still mourning the loss of friends and classmates, and while they're having to deal with a new reality of possibly armed teachers, having militia patrol the hallways, we have a couple of vigilantes come in, hack the system, and make demands of no guns in the school and all that. And at the end of the first issue, we find out who these are, and this is basically beginning. Excuse me. These students have superpowers, and we're going to find out some of these others actually have powers as well. With either this issue, it's kind of what I call a slow burn. We're going to get to the point where you'll have the superheroes and you have the powers and all that, but they're wanting to bring a really real world feel of this, dealing with real world issues and real world repercussions of actions. So it's going to be a very interesting book. It's going to be a very interesting imprint. So I'm curious to read this second issue and see where we're going. I think it's got a lot of possibilities.
It does sound good.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and if you have not read any of the Black titles, you should. They're really good.
They're really good. Yes, I highly recommend. Most of them have already been collected, so just go to the local comic shop, and if they don't have it, they can get it for you.
Yep.
Les, you're up again.
Okay, my second choice comes from Dynamite also. This is Dreadstar, the Wizard Rare Limited Edition, signed by Jim Starlin. This one collects the first 12 issues of the epic title from Marvel years ago, in which you are meeting Vanth Dreadstar and his crew against the Papal. This was such a good read. This was one that, when it first appeared, I wanted everything. I wanted to make sure I ran this whole run. Dreadstar was first appearing in was it Epic Magazine, I believe.
It may have been. That sounds about right.
It was like a 3 or 4 page story for several issues, and it got you to the point where Marvel decided this will be something we can take further, and they did step up to do so. I want to see this, getting to reread this character and all the people around him was such a fun time, and now rereading it is going to be that much more enjoyable.
Cool.
Yeah.
Once again, hard to say no with Jim Starlin.
Yeah. Jim Starlin. Yep. Alrighty, Liz.
All right. For my second pick, I'm going with Lois Lane #1. From my understanding, this will be a 12-part miniseries. So I don't know if you consider 12 issues mini, but it's not going to be an ongoing. Secret against Superman from, it sounds like, the higher-ups of the world. And I'm excited because Lois Lane will actually go back to her journalistic roots and get to the bottom of it. And I love when they do this. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was Marguerite Bennett did a one-shot of Lois Lane. And I was so excited because often she's a character that's overlooked. She's the one that Superman always rushes in and saves. So it was kind of nice to see her in her own little world and her own little one-shot. But I think that one wasn't enough to tell the story. So when I heard this was actually going to be a little bit longer of a series, I'm excited to see what she's going to be up to by herself. Greg Rucka and Mike Perkins will handle the story, which I think is an awesome duo that'll be able to tell us a really good Lois story, standing on her own, going back to her roots. So you go, girl. I mean, of course, Superman will be a part of the story. It's about him. You know, she's got to save him, which is kind of nice in itself, isn't it? This time she gets to save him. And not his mama.
Ouch.
Had to throw that in there.
Did you? Did you really?
Well, if she saves him, then they're really not going back to her roots then, are they?
Well, I meant more of her journalistic roots. You know, she's pretty smart. She was the lead reporter, you know. And I think I think especially with the TV series during the time it was, they kind of played her as, oh, help me, Superman, help me, and here he is to save the day. So she was always, her and Jimmy were always just someone who needed saving,
Well, that was pretty much in the comics, too.
Which TV series are we talking about here?
The one with George Reeves.
George Reeves, okay.
Yep.
Because there have been a few, but yeah. That was a time frame thing.
Yeah, it really was. So that's why I'm excited to see her in today's times.
Yep, a little more modernized. Could be good. Could be fun. Be interesting to see how they go with it.
And shows how smart she is, Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, Mike.
Okay, for my second pick, I am picking another Image title, and this one I can barely contain myself on. You thought I was excited about Analog. Well, Postal's coming back. This is called Postal Deliverance #1. And, well, damn it, Postal's coming back. I almost don't care what the story's about. I just want more, But yeah, I mean, it seems to be kind of picking up a little. There seems to be some time has passed since it let off the first time. Stuff has moved on, and I am excited to see where things are going, where things have gone, and where things are going.
Nice.
That does sound good.
Yep. Glad to see it back as well.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, for my second choice, I'm going with a 6-issue miniseries from Marvel Comics titled Star Wars Target Vader. And the premise is Vader is heading out to locate a criminal syndicate that he's wanting to take down. But little does he know that he's being hunted himself, obviously, since we got title Target Vader. But this group is being led by former Imperial officer Valance. They brought Valance back from the classic Marvel run. He was actually first appeared in which I did not know this until I started doing some research, the Han Solo Imperial Cadet miniseries, which recently wound up. So he is now a cyborg bounty hunter, and his task is to go after Vader. And this is being written by Robbie Thompson with art by Mark Lamming, so it's gonna be a real good read and beautiful art, and definitely sounds interesting. And it's nice to see Valance back into the Star Wars universe.
Does sound pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I agree.
Alrighty, and our honorable mention this week.
Honorable mention comes from Fantagraphics. This is the Conde Fee book, The Erotic Art of Wallace Wood. Wally Wood was, or is considered, one of the big legends in comic art. In this book, you get pieces of his erotic work, from his early gag cartoons to his parodies of things like Lil and Abner, Perry and the Privates, Superman Beats Blunder Woman, and others. This also includes his own Sally Forth and a couple of others, Brave Nude World and The Sexual Revolution. Wood was a master at drawing the female body, and I believe this is going to even bring it forward that much more. So I'm looking forward to this one. It'll be out in graphic novel form.
Cool.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any doubt about his skills of doing the female form, just remember he's co-created Power Girl.
Well, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the early material featuring Power Girl, it was art by Wally Wood. So there you go.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All righty. Any special shout-outs this week or mentions?
Don't think so.
Not here.
Nope.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the official news of Vertigo being closed down. I hate to hear this because I've enjoyed a lot of the books that came out from this imprint, and I'm sad to see it go. So many great stories were told. So many great creators came out of Vertigo. While I'm sad about this, I'm excited at the fact that those stories influence a lot of the creators that are out there right now. I remember, I will point out that Damian Wassel, who is the head of Vault Comics, said Vertigo's reason why Vault Comics exists. It gave him the encouragement to create the publishing company and put out the books that it does. And I'm sure there's other publishers who could say the same thing. So the influence of Vertigo is going to be felt for a long, long time, especially with Kieran Berger's imprint of Berger Books with Dark Horse and
Black Crown.
Black Crown from IDW. From Shelley Bond. I was blanking on her name. I was blanking on her first name. So we're still going to feel the influence of Vertigo for a long, long time, but it is sad to think that imprint is gone for good. Well, maybe not for good, but definitely.
It's definitely gone for now.
It's definitely gone for now. Yeah.
Yep. True enough.
Well, with that said, we'll go on to our regular shout-outs. First off, we want to thank Pop Goes the Culture for allowing us to be a part of their podcast network. Definitely check out our fellow podcasts. We'll have a link in the show notes. We appreciate their support, as well as we appreciate support of Podern Family, the group of fellow podcasters that's on Twitter for spreading the word of the fellowship by retweeting our links. Definitely go check out some of their fine work, and the best way to do that is to go to Twitter and do a search, hashtag Podern Family as one word, and just scroll through, and whatever catches your fancy, please, by all means, download that episode and check it out. Thank you guys for your support. Want to also thank Maddie DeMarter for supplying the music to our podcast. Definitely check out their music. We'll have a link to their EPs that they have released. And finally, you, dear listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We always appreciate your support. And we'd love to hear from you. Any kind of feedback you have, good, bad, indifferent, questions, comments, whatever, please, by all means, contact us. We want to hear from you. And there are several ways you can do that. You can go to the website and click on the About Us tab, and there's a contact form that you can fill out. Or you can send an email, and that email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Please follow us on our social media. On Facebook, we are The Fellowship of the Geeks. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, if you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and we caught your interest about the monthly meet and gab, there is a Facebook event set up. By all means, click interested or going, and we would love to see you there. We're also on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Feel free to follow us there. If you'd like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, by all means. Mike can be found at MikeyGeek. Liz can be found at LN_geek. And I can be found at TomTCGeek. And wherever you download our episodes, if you could please rate and review us. It would be greatly appreciated. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
Welcome back, Les. We missed you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody, for listening once again. We appreciate your support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,